Hello, movie lovers. Welcome to The Verdict. I'm Tiara Hall.
I'm Patrick Jimenez.
And I'm Devontae Banks. Now let's kick this episode off with Gerald's Game, a tale about a couple who tries to spice up their sex life and save their marriage, but end up in a freaky nightmare. Now the film stars Bruce Greenwood as Gerald and Carla Gugino as his wife Jessie. The couple venture off to an isolated lake house in Fairhope, Alabama for a romantic getaway away in the hopes to rekindle the flame in their relationship. Now things take an eerie turn when Gerald decides to handcuff Jessie as part of a sick roleplay game, and Jessie becomes stuck in Gerald's game. Let's take a look at this trailer.
This is gonna be good for us, Jess, really good.
That's a marriage, isn't it? Working on the difficult things.
For better or worse.
Let's go in, get comfy. I bet you think your husband will be back any minute. Try to go for help. There's no one for miles.
Gerald?
I'm sorry, baby, you don't get to know my name.
I don't like this. I'm serious. Stop.
Like that.
Stop it!
Are you playing?
Is this really what it takes these days?
God, how do we go so wrong? We were happy once, weren't we?
Gerald? What? What's happening?
Oh.
Gerald!
Wake up. Just wake up. It's time to wake up, honey.
5 hours you've wasted screaming for neighbors that are half a mile away, if they're even here yet. How long do you think someone lives without water? That will not work. You can pull till your wrists break. You're not getting out of those cuffs.
You're not real. You're not real. Little baby, don't say a word.
Focus. You've been sleepwalking since you were 12 years old.
That's a beautiful dress.
He put you in those handcuffs way before Gerald did.
You all right, Mel?
You have everything you need to survive from the beginning. You just have to remember.
Back off! If you don't wake up, you're gonna die.
Gerald's Game was directed by Mike Flanagan, who brought us the chilling films Hush and Oculus. Now, Rotten Tomatoes has given this film an approval rating of 90% and an average rating of 7.4 out of 10. Now, the consensus stated that Carla Gugino carries Gerald's Game's small-scale suspense with a career-defining performance. Now, Stephen King himself called the film hypnotic, horrifying, and terrific after watching the rough cut. Now, me personally, this film, out of everything Stephen King has done, is possibly one of his scariest, because this is something that could actually happen to you.
Yeah, I guess that's something that brought the realness to it and why it was so terrifying for me personally. And I was in my room by myself when I was watching it, and the whole movie, Jessie, is mostly by herself. And I'm like, wow, like being alone and not knowing if you're gonna make it out of this room alive, that's terrifying. Now, okay, how she gets into that situation is not her fault really, but so I mean, I know what to avoid when it comes to dating, but yeah.
Hungry dogs, definitely.
Hungry dogs, exactly, that's what I should avoid. What about you?
It was, I liked it. I mean, it was an uncomfortable watch, probably one of the more uncomfortable Stephen King viewings, but I feel like with this and 1922 that we'll get into later, and I feel like Stephen King's adaptations are great. They're like great films. And I feel like with this one, I mean, it could, like, people are thinking, oh, it's going to be one of these types of movies, and it's not. It's not 50 Shades of Grey. It's that if Stephen King wrote it. And it's intense. It's suspenseful. There's no jump scares. I love that. There was no.
Well, there was.
I mean, but there wasn't anything like when I think of jump scares, I think of like loud audio with an image.
Yeah.
This movie just went to the image with no loud boom, and it scared you. You jumped because of the image, not because of the sound being like, now you're gonna get scared. It didn't do that. It was just like, this is happening, And there was one part in particular, we were watching it, and it's a part where she's trying to slip out, and she does. And my fiance was like, yes, get out. That's what you got to do, girl. And then it pans over, and then it's, we'll get into that later. But it was, I don't know, it was a really good, had to stop myself. It was a really good suspense thriller. It was one of his better adaptations. It was very, like, the subject matter, especially with the parents, her father, and the correlation with him and the husband, and how they might have certain types of ideas of who they are as people, and it comes out through their actions. And like I said, the father was Elliot from E.T., the little kid, so I immediately was like, yes. And then I was completely terrified. He was great in that. I loved it. He was really good.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said it was more about the suspense than the jump scares, because it's refreshing to see that in a horror film nowadays when we're so used to Blumhouse and their Insidious and, Conjuring, and everything has to be loud. Like, if you go to the theaters, you really get scared just from the noise. If you're not looking at the screen, you're scared of the noise. But with this, it's all about the suspense, the slow build-up, and like not knowing if she's going to get out of there alive, really. Like, it's like it kind of messes with your inner fears, like, okay, I don't know if I could myself be in this situation, like what would I be able to muster out of that? Like, am I able to survive something like that? I don't know.
And one thing I really appreciated, just like going especially in depth to the film part, Mike Flanagan, he's great at casting, he's great at eliciting performance. Bruce Greenwood, he was one of my favorite parts of Kingsman this year. I mean, he just knocked that role out of the park. He knocked this role out of the park too. Carla Gugino, I had mainly seen her in things like Entourage, so it was really great seeing a performance like this out of her. And one thing I really enjoy is good staging. I really like to get the good geography of an area when I'm watching a movie, and this movie has that. There's her on the bed, there's her dead husband, and there's a dog in the movie. All these things are properly staged, and there's even another element that we can't tell you about. But one thing I think that's really cool is that in keeping with the space, you always know where everything is in relation to the room, and that makes the suspense even scarier. Because once things start to creep up or go back, you have to always keep in mind the environment around you. Are the windows open? Are they closed? Are there other things in the house? These are all things you have to consider. And just like our main character, you're in one place, so you're just kind of left thinking. That's one thing I enjoy, when a movie trusts its audience enough to let us basically imagine the horror for ourselves.
I think what was really beautiful was the flashback scenes where the sky, well, it was, set in the days of the eclipse, like whatever eclipse this was. They didn't actually give a time frame, I don't think. No. Yeah, but the sky was like a deep red, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in a film, really. Like, the way that they had put it on the screen, I was, and then you could see it in someone's eyes. I'm not going to say who, but you could see it in someone's eyes, and that really just made him one of the scariest parts of the movie. It's very intense. I will say that it's very intense, and I like how he stuck true to the book. Even though I haven't read the book, from reviews I have gathered that he stuck true to the book.
Yeah, which actually brings me to some of my problems with the movie. Now, I have read the book, and one of the things I really enjoyed about the book was the inner monologue with all the characters. But I get it. Best person to do an inner monologue is Martin Scorsese. Mike Flanagan's not going to do that. So I really like the technique. The only thing I didn't like was that it just kind of played with it in a weird way at some parts with the technique they use in the movie, which is like, so for example, she'll be thinking something and Bruce Greenwood will be like, oh, you shouldn't do that. And then like her imagine herself be like, oh, come on, you totally should. But there were points where like her point of view would switch. And then, like, you would have each one of them will become the angel, one of them will become the devil on her shoulder. It never got really clear, like, why she was thinking that way. Even after you know the flashback, it's still weird when you kind of know, like, all right, even if that's the case, I still think you guys could explain that in a better way. And another thing I dislike, which we'll get to later in the show, the epilogue. Look, Stephen King is one of my favorite writers. That being said, he always writes the weirdest possible ending he can to everything. Which, if you're doing something like Carrie, is great. I'm a really big fan of Carrie because of that ending. Everything is building up to this really weird, bizarre crescendo, and it works. Something like the original ending of It with the kids in the sewer in the book, that was just disgusting. Something like the end of this movie, just like the end of the book, is just something really disgusting and polarizing. It's something that just kind of pulls you out. But look, I could have even taken it. I get if they're going to go with the ending of the book. But one thing I really didn't enjoy was, this is something me and the person I was watching this with at the time remarked on, the makeup job they did for this other element. And special effects, I don't think were up to par. I wasn't really scared as much as I was like, well, there just looks just not even scary. So I'm not even scared at the time. That being said, I would give this movie a solid 3.25. Look, I think 3.25 out of 5. I think if you're like really bored one night and you just want to watch something on Netflix and you want to have something that's really suspenseful, it's great. But once it goes towards the end, I really feel like you'll just check out and you'll be like, okay, that was kind of weird, but I had a good time.
I thought it worked. I thought as a suspense movie and as it was pretty much just about like being held down from her past and not being able to get over it because it's hindered her throughout her whole life. So technically, when you have her and chained up, it's kind of like chained up from her past. She, whatever. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a story of letting go and moving forward. I thought it was great. I will never probably watch it again because it was too hard to watch, but I give it like 4.5 out of 5.
Actually, it's one of the few movies, horror movies, that I can watch again because I just enjoyed the storyline that much and the characters. But I give it a solid 4 out of 5. But when we return, we'll dive into the gothic tragedy 1922. Don't go anywhere.